Good evening, welcome to at least one of what I hope is going to be the final parts to quickly fusing your amp and giving yourself a little bit of peace of mind. Now, I've slightly changed direction on how to fuse the ignition switch, as I don't particularly want to take the binnacle off. I completely forgot that these cars actually have some very fragile cups around some of the screws that ideally I would like to take off before I attempt to take the binnacle off. Unlike later cars, these binnacles in early cars with metal-ended dashes, as you'll see here, are actually fixed from underneath. There is no two screws to bolt it to here, so I need to separate a few parts and whatnot, dismantle all this. So I'm not going to do that on this one. I'm just going to take the ignition switch out. Now, getting the ignition switch out is not too complicated. Let's put some light in the subject, and let's get the ignition switch off. Now, I mentioned earlier on about this tool that was remade by Bob Picton. Again, it's had a lot of use, Bob, I can tell you that. And whether it's switches with the small end or the ignition switches with the big end, you wouldn't believe the amount of faffing about that it saves, rather than having to fight with nose pliers, prongs, screwdrivers and everything else. Now we can get the ignition switch out to where we can see it. Now from here we can see one brown wire to the right. That's the main feed from the back of the car. There is another spade with two brown wires coming from it. I'll show you where that comes from, the ignition. Then there's two sets of white wires. Now those two sets of white wires, those two pairs, are what supplies the rest of the car. So those three there, far left, the two white wires, then two brown wires are what we're going to fuse. And we're going to use these things that we made up before for other parts of the car, so we can actually plug them in and reverse it very, very easily. Now I'm going to go and quickly show you where that is in the schematic for the car. I should see the wire diagram. Now these wire here, dear, can't do this with the glasses on. These are your two pairs of white wires which go and follow the fuse points that we had before, and these are your interior light and your power from sides that you've seen earlier. So we'll be getting these brown wires here. So let's go and get those in. I'll do one at a time. It's going to be very, very difficult if I can't get the camera to a position where you can see me do it, but certainly I should be able to get enough in shot so you can see where they're going. I'll try to get in here with the camera and lighting, and still the way to do it was a bit of a bust, so I'm just going to do them one at a time. First one I'm going to do is this brown one. Now I've rated all these fuses currently at 15 amps, and what we'll do is we'll get them in and then we'll actually go around with the meter and actually see what each current draws. That's the first one in, and as you can see access is quite good. So we're on to these two other ones now. Now one thing I'll note is that I'll need to put a bit of sleeving around about here because someone's tapped off this particular feed for the gauges, so I'm now going to go and do both of these white ones, if you look very, very closely, you'll see that they're both shorted together anyway into the same terminal. So let's get those two done and then get the ignition switch back into place. Okay, so there's our 3 fuses in. Now, as you can see the way they're sitting, you could have easily extended the wires and actually put a small fuse box in here with a row of 3, which would have give you the same protection almost, but longer wires and the fuse would be a bit easier to get to. But as you'll see when I go to put the ignition switch in, if I can rest the camera somewhere, they're actually pretty reasonably accessible once the switch goes in. Ignition switch nice and tidy. Job done. Time to measure some currents.